Welcome to Cheating Story Exposed. When you're done watching, share this story. Someone might need to hear it. My name is Daniel. I'm 42 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've been called unambitious. Not to my face, usually at least not at first, but I heard it in the sighs. The way my wife, Lauren, would pause before answering when her friends asked what I did for a living. The thin smile she'd give when someone at a dinner party talked about promotions and corner offices, and I'd sit there quietly, swirling my drink. I worked in financial consulting. On paper, it was a decent job. Stable income, reasonable hours, nothing flashy. I wore the same 3-rotation of business casual outfits, drove a 7-year-old sedan, and our house was a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet suburb. We weren't struggling, but we weren't the couple with the vacation home in Aspen either. And for Lauren, that became a problem. Let me be clear about something from the start. I loved my wife. We'd met in college, married young, built a life together. She was brilliant, driven, and beautiful. She worked in corporate marketing for a rapidly growing tech firm called Elevation Dynamics. It was one of those companies that seemed to appear out of nowhere, and suddenly everyone was talking about them. Lauren thrived there. She was good at her job, great even, and she loved the energy of being part of something that felt like it was going somewhere. Her CEO was a man named Jonathan Pierce. Mid-40s, charismatic, the kind of guy who could walk into a room and own it within seconds. He'd built Elevation Dynamics from the ground up, or so the story went. Brilliant visionary, risk-taker, the whole mythology. Lauren worshipped him. Not romantically, at least, I don't think so, but professionally. He was everything she thought I wasn't. Jonathan closed a $12 million deal today, she'd say over dinner, her eyes bright. 12 million, Daniel, can you imagine? Nod, say something supportive, and she'd keep going. He just has this presence, you know. People respect him. When he walks into a meeting, everyone listens. I never said what I was thinking, I just listened. The comments about me started subtly, little comparisons. Jonathan's talking about expanding into the European market. He's so forward-thinking. Pause. Must be nice to work somewhere with that kind of vision. Then, over time, the subtlety faded. Why don't you ever talk about your work, Daniel? Don't you have any big projects, anything exciting? I'm working on a portfolio restructure for a client, I'd say. That's it. It's important work. I'm sure it is. But her tone said otherwise. The breaking point came about 8 months ago. We were at a dinner party hosted by one of Lauren's colleagues, a woman named Stephanie who lived in a sprawling house with vaulted ceilings and a wine cellar. The guest list was mostly people from Elevation Dynamics, their partners, a few investors. I knew I'd be the odd man out, but I went because Lauren wanted me there. The evening started fine. Small talk, appetizers, the usual social choreography. Then someone asked me what I did. Financial consulting, I said. Oh, interesting. What kind of clients? Private investors, mostly. Portfolio management, asset allocation, some venture advisory. Venture advisory. The man's eyebrows went up. You help people decide where to put their money. Something like that. Ever work with any big names? I smiled. I keep my client list private. That seemed to satisfy him, and the conversation moved on, but I felt Lauren's eyes on me. Later, when we were alone in the kitchen refilling drinks, she leaned in close. You could have said something more impressive, she murmured. I answered his question. You made it sound like you're some kind of accountant. I am a financial consultant. That's what I do. She sighed, that familiar, tired sound. You know what I mean. I didn't respond. We rejoined the group. An hour later, Jonathan Pierce arrived. He hadn't been expected, but Stephanie lit up when she saw him. Everyone did. He worked the room effortlessly, shaking hands, laughing, making people feel like they were the most important person in the world. Lauren gravitated toward him like a moth to a flame. I watched from across the room as she laughed at something he said, her hand on his arm. It wasn't flirtatious, it was admiration. Worship almost, and when he started telling a story about acquiring a competitor, she hung on every word. That's the kind of vision I'm talking about, she said loudly enough for others to hear. That's what real ambition looks like. Her eyes flicked toward me for just a second. It was enough. I finished my drink, set the glass down, and walked outside to the patio. I needed air. That night, on the drive home, Lauren was electric. Did you hear Jonathan's story about the acquisition? He's a genius, Daniel, an actual genius. He's very good at what he does, I said evenly. You should try to be more like him. I kept my eyes on the road. What does that mean? You know what I mean. You're smart, Daniel. You could do more, you could be more, but you just coast. I don't coast. You do. You've been doing the same job for 10 years. Same routine, same everything. Don't you want more? I'm happy with what I have. She laughed, but it wasn't a kind sound. That's the problem. You're too comfortable. You've given up. I didn't answer. What could I say? When we got home, she went straight to bed. I sat in the living room for a long time, staring at nothing. Here's the thing Lauren didn't know, the thing almost no one knew. I wasn't just a financial consultant. That was part of it, yes, but it was the clean, public-facing part. The part I could explain at dinner parties without raising eyebrows. The other part, the real part, was that I was a private investor. I'd been one for nearly 15 years. I'd started small, using money I'd saved and borrowed, making careful, calculated bets on early-stage companies. Some failed, most did, but a few didn't. And those few successes compounded into something significant. By the time I was 30, I had enough capital to play in bigger games. I invested in startups, usually as a silent partner. I didn't want board seats or public recognition. I wanted returns. I wanted to back smart people with good ideas and let them run with it. My name didn't appear on press releases. I didn't give interviews. I just wrote checks and watched. One of those checks went to a 29-year-old entrepreneur named Jonathan Pierce. It was 2012. Jonathan had an idea for a software platform that would streamline supply chain management for mid-sized companies. It was smart, and he was hungry, but he had no money and no credibility. He'd been turned down by a dozen investors before someone introduced him to me. We met at a coffee shop. He gave me his pitch, and I listened. He was rough around the edges back then, nervous, talking too fast, but the idea was solid. How much do you need? I asked. $200,000 to start, enough to build a prototype and hire a small team. And what do I get? 15% equity. I considered it. I'll give you $300,000 for 20%, and I stay silent. No board seat, no operational input unless you ask for it. You run the company, I collect returns. He blinked. That's it. That's it. But I want quarterly reports, full transparency on financials, and if you need more capital down the line, I get first right of refusal. He agreed. We shook hands. Over the next 5 years, Jonathan turned that $300,000 into elevation dynamics. He was good, better than I'd expected. He scaled fast, hired smart, pivoted when he needed to. I injected more capital twice, increasing my stake to 28%. By the time the company was valued at $50 million, I'd made back my initial investment several times over. By the time it hit $200 million, I was wealthier than I'd ever imagined, but I didn't change my life. I didn't buy a mansion or a sports car. I kept working my consulting job because I liked the work and it kept me grounded. I kept driving my sedan. I kept living in the same house. Lauren knew we were comfortable, but she didn't know the full picture. I'd never told her. Why? Partly because I didn't want it to change how she saw me. I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. And partly because I'd seen what money did to people. I'd seen friendships destroyed, families torn apart. I wanted to keep that part of my life separate. But as the years went on and Lauren's resentment grew, I started to wonder if I'd made a mistake. The dinner party incident was bad, but it got worse. A month later, Lauren came home and announced that Elevation Dynamics was hosting a gala. It was a big deal celebrating the company's 10th anniversary, with investors, clients, and employees all invited. Black tie, open bar, the works. You're coming, she said. It wasn't a question. Of course. And please, Daniel, try to make an effort. Network a little, talk to people. Don't just sit in the corner all night. I'll do my best. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen before. Disappointment, yes, but also something colder. Disdain. The gala was held at a downtown hotel, one of those glittering ballrooms with chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Lauren had bought a new dress for the occasion, deep blue elegant. She looked stunning. I wore my one good suit. When we arrived, she immediately disappeared into the crowd, networking, laughing, shaking hands. I drifted toward the bar and ordered a whiskey. Daniel, I turned. Jonathan Pierce was standing there, grinning. Jonathan, I said, shaking his hand. Good to see you. You too, man. It's been a while. How have you been? Good, busy. You can't complain. He gestured at the room. This is wild, isn't it? 10 years. Feels like yesterday we were in that coffee shop. You've done incredible work. We've done incredible work, he corrected. I wouldn't be here without you, you know that. I smiled. You did the hard part. Still, he clapped me on the shoulder. I'm going to say something during my speech tonight. Give credit where it's due. That's not necessary. It is to me. Before I could respond, someone pulled him away for a photo. I watched him go, then turned back to the bar. An hour later, Lauren found me. There you are, she said, slightly breathless. I've been looking everywhere. Jonathan's about to give his speech. We moved toward the front of the room where a small stage had been set up. Jonathan stepped up to the microphone and the crowd quieted. He started with the usual thank yous. Employees, clients, partners. He talked about the company's journey, the challenges they'd overcome, the vision for the future. He was good at this, commanding, warm, confident. Then he paused. Before I wrap up, I want to take a moment to recognize someone who made all of this possible. Someone who believed in me when I was nobody. Someone who took a chance on a kid with an idea and a PowerPoint deck, and who gave me the resources to turn that idea into reality. I felt Lauren stiffen beside me. 14 years ago, I sat in a coffee shop with a man who listened to my pitch and didn't laugh me out of the room. He didn't just invest money, he invested trust. And tonight, I want to publicly thank him for everything he's done, not just for me, but for everyone in this room whose livelihood depends on this company. Jonathan scanned the crowd. Daniel Carter, could you please stand up? The room went silent. I didn't move at first. I felt Lauren's eyes on me. Burning, Daniel, Jonathan said again, smiling. Don't be shy. Slowly I stood. The room erupted into applause. People turned to look at me, clapping, some of them clearly confused about who I was. Jonathan raised his glass. To Daniel Carter, our founding investor and the man who made Elevation Dynamics possible. Thank you. The applause continued. I nodded, gave a small wave, and sat back down. Lauren didn't clap. She stared at me, her face pale. Jonathan finished his speech and stepped down. The music started again. People began to mingle, but Lauren didn't move. Daniel. Her voice was barely a whisper. What was that? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do I mean? He just called you his founding investor. I am. You, she stopped, her mouth opening and closing. You invested in Elevation Dynamics 14 years ago, before it was Elevation Dynamics, when it was just Jonathan and an idea. How much? Initially, 300,000. Her eyes widened. 300, Daniel, we didn't have that kind of money. I did. From where? From previous investments, from years of work you never asked about. She looked like I'd slapped her. You've been secretly rich this whole time. I'm not rich, I'm comfortable, and it wasn't a secret, you just never asked. She shook her head, struggling. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want it to matter. Didn't want it to matter. Daniel, do you have any idea how much I've... She stopped herself, but I knew where she was going. How much you've what? Resented me, looked down on me, compared me to Jonathan, not knowing I was the reason Jonathan exists. Her face flushed. That's not fair, isn't it? People were starting to notice us. Lauren glanced around, then grabbed my arm. We're leaving. You wanted me to network. Now, Daniel, we left. The drive home was silent. When we got inside, she exploded. You've been lying to me for years. I haven't. Lied, I've just been private. Private? You let me think we were scraping by. We've never scraped by. We've lived comfortably. Comfortably, she laughed wild. Daniel, I've been killing myself trying to climb the ladder at Elevation because I thought we needed my income. I thought you weren't capable of providing more. I never asked you to do that. You didn't have to. You just sat there being mediocre, and I thought. She stopped, breathing hard. You thought what? I thought I'd married someone small. The words hung between us. And now? I asked quietly. She looked at me, and for a moment I saw something like regret, but it passed. Now I don't know who you are. 3 days later, Lauren asked for a separation. She moved into a friend's place while we figured things out. I didn't fight her. What would have been the point? Jonathan called me the next week. I heard, he said. I'm sorry, man. Not your fault. Still, if I'd known it would cause problems, I wouldn't have said anything. You didn't cause the problems. They were already there. He was quiet for a moment. For what it's worth, she's lucky to have had you, even if she couldn't see it. Thanks, Jonathan. Anything you need, you let me know. I appreciated that. The separation became a divorce. Lauren wanted it fast, clean. I agreed. We split assets equitably, though she seemed shocked when she learned the full scope of what equitably meant. My investment portfolio, my stake in Elevation Dynamics, she was entitled to a portion. She walked away with more money than she'd ever imagined. She also walked away with the knowledge that the man she'd called unambitious had quietly built an empire while she mocked him. I didn't feel vindicated. Not really. Mostly I felt sad. Sad that she'd never bothered to ask. Sad that she'd loved the idea of ambition more than the person I actually was. But I also felt free. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from a journalist writing a profile on Jonathan and Elevation Dynamics. He wanted to include a section on early investors. I'd prefer to stay out of it, I said. Jonathan thought you might say that. He wanted me to tell you that he thinks you deserve recognition. Jonathan's a good man, but I don't need recognition. Fair enough. The article ran without my name, just a brief mention of early investors who believed in the vision. That was fine by me. I sold a portion of my stake in Elevation Dynamics last year. The company's now valued at over $800 million, and my remaining shares are worth more than I'll ever need. I still do consulting work, still live in the same house, still drive the same car. People sometimes ask me if I regret staying quiet for so long, if I regret not telling Lauren the truth from the beginning. I don't know. Maybe things would have been different. Maybe she would have loved me for me, even knowing. But I doubt it. She fell in love with the idea of success, not the quiet reality of it. These days I'm seeing someone new. Her name is Angela. She's a librarian, thoughtful and kind. She knows what I do, knows about the money, and it doesn't change how she looks at me. We go for walks, cook dinner together, talk about books and life and the small things that matter. I'm happy, truly happy. And I've learned something important. Real ambition isn't loud. It doesn't need applause or validation. It's quiet, patient, persistent. It's building something meaningful and not needing the world to know. Lauren wanted a man who looked ambitious. She got one. Eventually, I heard she's dating someone new, a VP at another tech firm. I hope he makes her happy. As for me, I'm exactly where I want to be. Living on my terms, investing in people and ideas I believe in, and finally being understood by someone who matters. That's worth more than any gala speech. If there's a lesson here, it's this. Never mistake quiet for weak. Never assume you know someone's story just because they don't broadcast it. And never, ever mock someone for lacking ambition when you don't know what they've built in silence. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, share it. Someone out there might need to hear it.